So for this painting, we're going to look at painting this little bird, but instead of just transferring it with our transfer paper, I'd like to show you how we could draw it ourselves. And then what we do is draw it, correct it, and then transfer it, but we would do our own drawing. So one of the approaches to drawing is to use basic shapes to start the drawing to get the proportions right, get the placement on the page right. And one of those basic shapes we can use is an ellipse or an oval. And so you can see how I used a oval shape to draw the body of the bird. I used another oval shape for its head, and then just more of a triangle shape or just two lines for the wings and some lines for the tail. So we're using very simple um, lines or shapes to start drawing, put it together in a very simple way. Then we go back and correct the edges and make it look more realistic. So here you can see how by using my marker over the bird drawing, and I can simplify it by straight lines or curved shapes or oval shapes or circle shapes, that sort of thing. So we're going to actually practice drawing those oval shapes so we can do this on our own without having to trace it. So on a piece of paper, this is just on just copy paper, not on your watercolor paper, but on the copy paper, we're going to practice drawing some oval shapes. So if you noticed, as I drew the oval, but then I identified what's called the axis line. It's the direction of the shape. So in the middle of the oval or the ellipse, there's a line, and that actually divides the two curves, which are symmetrical curves basically. So if we take a line and just draw it, it can be any direction, but here we'll draw it like in an angle. And then around that line, we'll draw this oval shape. So a good way to do that is to draw the line, and then on the top and the bottom of the line, you can just make a curved shape to start with, or a semi circle or a curve, and then do the same on the bottom of the line. And then you would connect them with curves on either side and just try to even it out, round it out. Okay, so now I did a curve at the top, bottom, and then I rounded out the from the two curves on the sides. So you have this symmetrical on both sides. So one side should really match the other curve, but it doesn't have to be. This isn't meant to be highly technical. This is not drawing some very highly technical geometric forms. You're just trying to identify the body, the width of the body, how wide it is, and the direction of the shape of the body. So we're just practicing drawing these ovals. So on your paper, you just you could draw several ovals, roughly the size of the body of the bird. Okay, now for the head, we can draw another oval, but now the oval's going in a different direction. And also I tried to identify where the axis line for that oval falls on the previous oval we just drew. So I notice it comes right at the edge of our previous oval. And then I tried to identify what direction that axis is, because that's the direction more or less of the shape. That kind of indicates how the shape is tilted. So we would do the same thing for the head that we did for the body, except it's smaller and the axis is going in a different direction. So you can go ahead and practice doing that. draw 3 different smaller ovals. That would be the oval you'll use for the head when we put it all together in one drawing. Okay, so now we'll start the actual drawing of the bird. So what I'll do is I take a look at my reference, and that straight line that goes through the middle of the oval, the axis line, I try to see what angle that line is. And also, I want to try to get a feel for how tall or what's the length of the line, because that's going to be basically indicate the size of the bird. Okay, so here I'm drawing the line in the correct direction, and then I kind of marked it off. Now, one way I can measure is take my pencil, put the tip of the pencil at the tip of the oval of the bird from the reference, and pinch the bottom, and then go to my drawing and make little marks at the top and the bottom, and that gives me the length of the oval. And here I'm doing the same thing as I practice. I'm drawing this oval shape with the axis line in the correct direction, this tilted angle direction, diagonal. Okay, then I draw the axis line for the next oval right at the top of the body oval. And I kind of indicate how wide I think the oval is going to be. Draw the 2 curves on each end of the axis, and then draw the connecting curves around each side. Okay, I'm going to try to identify where the line for the top of the wing, where that starts on the big oval I'm drawing. So how far down from the head is it? And I draw the 2 lines for the wing coming up, the top and bottom of the wing. And notice how simple all these lines are going to be to start with. Draw 2 lines out for the tail area. Here I'm kind of elongating the shape because now we deviate from the oval to start correcting a little bit the actual shape that we're trying to draw. Then I need to figure out, make lines for the legs coming out. Where do they fall on the body? Where does the little leg start from the body, and how far does it come down? And then I also can draw just 2 main lines for the little branch. Okay, then I'm going to be identifying the legs. in relation to the branch I drew, and then draw some very simple straight lines that indicate the shape of the feet as they wrap around the branch. Draw in the beak, where the eye goes. And then I can indicate some of the darker shapes there just by drawing straight lines that kind of indicate where those end of those shapes are. Keeping the drawing very simple at this stage. So we're talking about basically straight lines or simple shapes. Here I just try to correct that basic shape drawing. Try to identify if I have the proportions wrong. I can go in and change proportions. But everything's a basic shape, straight lines, or just your basic shapes. Okay, so now that we got our basic shape drawing, okay, and that you want to just adjust everything, but just as basic shapes, what we'll do now is we'll go back in and draw on top of that drawing and correct everything to be more accurate contours that we see. So what I'm going to do is I'll take my eraser, my kneaded eraser, and I'll just start going over the whole drawing. I'll go over the whole drawing and erase it back so it's light. I'm not trying to erase the whole drawing. I'm just lightening the drawing. And in the video, it looks lighter than it actually is, but just light enough where I just see the outline form, but very lightly. And then what I'm going to do is look at each little small area of the drawing, the contours, meaning the outside edge, and I'm going to try to just match it little by little, just go around and match what's happening with all the contours in the drawing. And I'll go through the drawing and look carefully, and what I'm looking for is how the line changes angle, goes up, maybe it flattens out, and then it curves. But now you're not worrying so much about proportions because you've already figured that out. What you're trying to do is just match more carefully the edge as it goes in and out and back and forth, staying within your basic shape. So it's just a little at a time, going around the whole drawing, trying to match the edges. And you have to constantly look back at your reference to see the direction that the line is taking, trying to match that. You can also, some of the more obvious shapes on the inside, you can draw those. Anything that seems very soft edge and diffused edge, you don't have to worry about that. You'll do that with the brush later. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video so you can see me do this in a quick time fashion. But that's what I'm doing. I'm just looking carefully at each edge and adjusting it to match what I see in the drawing. Okay, now once you've gone through the drawing and adjusted all the edges, get the contours correct, looking carefully back and forth at your drawing. Then you get back, take a look at it. If there's some areas that are off, you go back in again and try to redraw those so that they match the best they can. So you go back and forth, matching the edges. You're just worrying about the edge contour. It's hard to see when you have something that's in color and it's painted, but you have to try to match those. And once you get that as close as you can, then and correct it, then you just that's going to be your drawing. And later on, we'll transfer that to the watercolor paper and then go ahead and do the painting. So this is the first stage is doing your drawing in preparation for doing the final painting.